So let's say you're taking your first steps into Node.js development and you get that first web server up and running, and as you browse to it, it returns hello world. That's super exciting, so you want to show your friend what you have done. So you want to run your web server on their machine. But as they try to get things set up, it will say npm is not a recognized command, because this friend is not a developer. So what do? Wouldn't it be great if there was a way for you to just send them a URL and get your code running on their machine so that they could browse to your server and see that hello world?
Impressive. Very nice.
There's actually a way, and it's called StackBlitz. So StackBlitz is an online integrated development environment that lets you run Node inside what they call a web container. So you can think of it like a code pen, but you have access to both the backend and the frontend. It also has integration with GitHub, so you can take your code from there and get it up to running really fast. Another exciting part is that you can actually debug both the backend and frontend of your application using Chrome DevTools. It becomes like a small operating system in the browser. Anyone that you send the URL to will have the environment up and running without having to do anything other than browsing to the link. So what we should do now is to browse to StackBlitz and go through some of the functionality and then see how we can debug both the backend and the frontend in developer tools. Alright, so let's look into StackBlitz. So this is a blog article about their web containers. So down here we have some boilerplates that we can use. So let's try the HTTP starter one. Okay, so here we are. We're running a backend node project inside StackBlitz. So we have something that looks a lot like Visual Studio Code here. And in the side panel here we have a browser. And down here we have a terminal. It's like a scaled down version of a terminal, but you can interact with it just like you're used to. And I can move around using CD and so on. Change the code here. Hello from barely coding. I'll save the file using Command S. As I changed the file, the server will reload, and then I can just reload the browser and it will update. So this behaves very similar to a project that I would have just on my machine. So what if I want to debug this Node project? Usually I debug inside Visual Studio Code, but here we could just, before we return something here, I will add a debugger statement. So if there's a debugger attached, the debugger will stop there. Now there is no debugger attached because my dev tools are not open. So if I just click here and inspect, and now if I refresh the browser, so the Node server is called again, you can see that the server code is actually inside of the DevTools here. So now I can look at the different variables and so on. I can debug the code and find my errors. So this is very cool. Okay, so now that I have this server running in this tab, I can think of this server as running locally on my machine. So if I take up a different tab and I go to the URL that we see here, I can still reach it. Here I don't get stopped by that debugger on the backend side. So I could work on the backend here, and if I had some front-end code, I could debug that just in this tab. So I think that's really cool. So let's open up a StackBlitz that is made for front-end code. So let's do a React boilerplate. So now before I return the JSX here, I could set a debugger. Let's close the Git suggestions. So I can still reach it, I can still change it, and here I don't even have to save before it's being reloaded. And the settings for that you can find on the cogwheel here. You can say reload mechanism hot reload, which is what I'm using now. So let's see if we can debug our code by stopping at this debugger here. So again, I have to open up the DevTools and then I reload the page, and then I get stopped at the debugger. So that's how I can debug the front-end code. So let's see if we can reach this from a different tab as well. Yeah, so this is also reachable from a different tab, which is great. So since this is client-side code, I will stop on the debuggers when using a different tab here. I think this is really useful if I just want to get help on debugging something and I can take help from a colleague without them having to have everything installed. I can just have it running in a StackBlitz instance. I think this is really cool, and it could open up to develop on other clients that has Chrome, where I don't necessarily need to have all the dependencies installed locally on that machine. Alright, so that's all for now about StackBlitz. Please try it out if you're interested, if you learned something, and if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. I will see you next time.